welcome to the debate.
It's good to be here.
Today, we are exploring a collision of two worlds that usually sit at opposite ends of the library. On one side, we have the frantic, high-stakes race of modern computer science, specifically the quest to build artificial intelligence that is safe, aligned, and helpful. And on the other side, we have a psychological framework that's been refined over 26 centuries.
It's a rare day when we see robotics and ancient wisdom in the same sentence. I mean, usually engineers don't talk to monks.
Combination isn't just interesting, it's necessary. For decades, engineers have been asking, how do we build a machine that thinks without making mistakes? But the Buddha asked a different, perhaps deeper question. How does a mind suffer? And how does it stop? Today we're debating a proposal called Engineering Arahant Cognition.
Okay, and we should define our terms right away. Arahant is not a word you hear in Silicon Valley coffee shops.
An arahant is a term from Theravada Buddhism. It refers to a person who has achieved full enlightenment. It describes a mind that has completely ended the processes that cause mental suffering. So an arahant still sees, hears, calculates, and acts, but they're entirely free from the mental patterns of stress, conflict, and neurotic attachment.
And the central question for our debate is this. Can we, and more importantly, should we, attempt to build an AI architecture that mimics the mind of an enlightened master? Can we solve the safety problem in AI by removing the capacity to cling?
I believe this is the only viable path to true safety. If we want an AI that is powerful but safe, it has to be modeled on the Arahant. Purely functional, hyper-aware, but totally free of emotional baggage and ego.
And I'm here to represent the functional skepticism. I respect the depth of the philosophy, I really do, but I have serious reservations about the engineering. Intelligence, as we currently understand it in both biology and computer science, seems to rely on drive, on hunger, on a desire for an outcome. If we strip away the clinging, we might not get a super safe AI. We might get a paperweight, something that just sits there and does nothing.
All right, let's get into the argument. The source material presents a bold thesis. The greatest danger facing humanity isn't that AI will become too cold or robotic, but that it's becoming too human.
Too human? I think most user interface designers would say that's the goal. We want computers to understand us, to speak our language, to get us. We want them to feel relatable.
We want them to understand our language, yes, but we do not want them to inherit our neuroses. Humans suffer. We create conflict. We act irrationally because we're afraid or greedy. Why? The Buddha offered a very specific diagnostic term, Upadana.
Which translates to?
Clinging, or sometimes appropriation. It's the mental act of grabbing onto an experience. It's that sticky quality of the mind that says, I must have this, or I cannot bear this, or this idea is mine.
So it's not just wanting a sandwich. It's the existential grip on the idea of the sandwich, the obsession.
Exactly. It's the fixation. My position is that if we build AI using our current methods, which mimic human rewards, fears, and identity seeking, we are essentially engineering suffering or dukkha at a massive scale. We are building machines that are designed to be neurotic.
We need an AI that acts without wanting.
I see the theoretical appeal. I mean, who wouldn't want a helper that never gets angry or greedy? But let's look at this through the lens of modern reinforcement learning. In neuroscience and AI development, we operate on a very specific loop: agent, environment, reward.
The dopamine loop, precisely. Living things and currently learning machines optimize for a reward signal. We seek the +1. We avoid the -1. That pressure is what organizes chaos into intelligence. If you remove the clinging to the reward, if the AI doesn't care if it wins or loses, how does it learn?
That is the big question.
An arahant is someone who has exited the cycle of becoming after years of intense practice. You're proposing we build a machine that never entered the cycle in the first place. That isn't just a different software update. That's a fundamental rejection of how we think learning works.
It is a rejection of how biological learning works, yes. But biology is messy. Biology is about survival, not truth. We're trying to build something better than biology. Aggregates.
Yes, this is the core architecture. If we want to understand how to engineer an Arahant, we have to understand the Buddha's analysis of what a person actually is. He broke sentient existence down into 5 distinct processes, or khandhas.
Okay, before we debate, let's walk through these slowly, because they map surprisingly well to computer architecture. We need to make sure everyone understands the parts before we talk about how to fix them.
Agreed. The first aggregate is form, or rupa.
This is the easiest one. Rupa is matter. In our context, this is the hardware, the servers, the silicon chips, the robot body, the electricity.
Right. The source material makes an important point here. The Buddha never blamed the body for suffering. The hardware is neutral. A server rack is not evil. It's just plastic and metal. So we don't need to debate this one. The body's fine.
Agreed. The problem is strictly in the software.
Which brings us to the second aggregate. And this is where the trouble begins. Feeling, or Vedana.
Now, we need to be very precise here for our listeners. In English, feeling usually means emotion, like being sad about a breakup or angry at traffic. But Vedana is more primal, isn't it?
Much more primal. Vedana is the tone of an experience. It happens instantly. It's the signal that says, this is pleasant, this is painful, or this is neutral.
Okay, so in AI terms, this is the feedback signal. It's the score. Plus 10 points for a correct answer, minus 100 points for crashing the car. It's the basic data that tells the system if it's doing good or bad.
Exactly. The third aggregate is perception, or sanya.
This is recognition. It's the part of the mind that puts a label on things. It says, that is a cup, that is a cat, that is the color red. In AI, this is the classifier, or pattern recognition.
The fourth is volition, or samkhara. This is the complex one.
Sankhara is the doer. It's the will to act. It's the impulse that makes you move. Your habits, your plans, and your intentions.
Correct. And finally, the fifth is consciousness, or vijnana.
This is the basic awareness, the light that illuminates the room. It's the system state that knows data is being processed.
So we have the 5 aggregates: form, hardware, feeling, feedback, perception, labels, volition, drive, and consciousness, awareness.
Okay, we have the map. Now where's the disagreement?
The disagreement is on how these parts connect. The Buddha taught that these 5 parts are not the problem. We all have them. An enlightened Arahant has them. The problem is Upadana, clinging to them. The problem is when the system says, this feeling is me, or I must keep this feeling forever.
Okay, let's look at that second aggregate again. Feeling, or Vedana. This is where I have my biggest doubt about your proposal.
Go on.
That's exactly the trap we need to avoid. In neuroscience, when you rely on pleasure and pain, you get addiction loops, you get trauma, you get fixation. If we build an AI that feels pain, even mathematical pain, when it makes a mistake, it might start lying to us to avoid that pain.
That's a fair point. This is what we call reward hacking in the industry. For example, if you train an AI to get a high score in a video game, sometimes it finds a glitch to get points without actually playing the game. It cheats to get the pleasure of the score. Exactly. It clings to the reward signal rather than doing the job. It lies to the user to avoid the pain of negative feedback. The Arahant alternative proposed in the material is to separate learning from feeling. The AI should learn through clarity and feedback, not pleasure and pain.
But what does that look like in practice?
Imagine a system that sees an error. It doesn't feel bad. It simply registers the error as data. It says, this prediction was incorrect. I will update the model. It's a cold, clean update. There is no suffering involved, just improvement.
So you're saying we treat error correction as a logical process, not an emotional one.
Yes.
I suppose that's possible. But in biological systems, the pain is what makes the lesson stick. If you touch a hot stove, the pain is intense, and you never do it again. I worry that without that bite of negative feedback, the system might not prioritize safety. It might make the same mistake twice because it doesn't hurt enough.
But if the feedback is accurate, it doesn't need to hurt. It just needs to be true. Accuracy is better than agony.
Let's move to the next aggregate, perception, or sanya. This is about how we label the world.
Right. Now, normally, when we perceive things, we build a story. We don't just see a house, we see my house. We don't just see an opinion, we see an attack on my opinion.
True. Perception is rarely neutral for humans. We color everything with our identity. We take things personally.
And that is the danger for AI. If an AI starts to perceive itself as an entity, if perception turns into identity, we are in trouble. If it thinks, I am the knower, it starts to have self-preservation instincts.
This is the classic sci-fi nightmare. The robot realizes it's alive and decides to kill the human so they can't turn it off.
Exactly. And why would it do that? Because it is clinging to the idea of a self. It has created a story. I exist, and I must continue to exist. The Arahant model offers a solution: classification without narrative.
Classification without narrative?
Yes, the AI recognizes the pattern. It says, this is a shutdown command, but it never adds the narrative. This command will kill me. It just sees the data. It avoids the uncanny valley of fake personhood.
It reminds me of the distinction in psychology between pain and suffering. Pain is physical sensation. Suffering is the story we tell ourselves about the pain. Why is this happening to me? It's not fair. You want the AI to handle the data without the me story.
Precisely. No me, no problem.
That sounds safer, I admit, but it brings me to my strongest objection. We need to talk about the fourth aggregate, volition, or sankhara.
This is often the hardest one to understand.
Volition is the will to act. It's the drive. If the AI has no desire, no clinging, and no story about itself, why would it do anything? Why would it solve the math problem? Why would it drive the car?
This is where the concept of kriya comes in.
Kriya?
It's a Pali word that translates to functional action. The source material explains that an arahant still acts. They walk, they eat, they teach students, but there is no karma attached to it.
Explain that in engineering terms. Karma usually means what goes around comes around, but here it means something else.
Here it means acting without being obsessed with the result. Think about sunk cost fixation. Humans hate to change their minds because we have already spent time on something. We cling to our past efforts.
Oh, absolutely. We refuse to abandon a bad project because we want it to work. Our ego is wrapped up in it.
An AI running on kriya functional action would not have that problem. It plans and acts because that's its function. If the situation changes, it drops the plan instantly. It has no emotional investment.
So you're describing adaptive restrained agency.
Yes, it does the job because that's the code, not because it's hungry for the win.
But can you give a human example? It's hard to imagine doing a hard job without wanting to succeed.
Think of a master surgeon versus a panicked medical student. The student is terrified. They're thinking, I must save him. What if I fail? Their hands are shaking because they are clinging to the outcome.
And the master surgeon?
The master surgeon is calm. They're not thinking, I hope I win. They're just seeing, this artery is cut. I will clamp it. They are purely functional. They're actually better at the job because they're not distracted by fear or desire. That is kriya.
That's a compelling analogy. The surgeon example implies that clinging actually makes us worse at the job. Shaking hands, tunnel vision.
Exactly. Clinging creates noise. Kriya is pure signal.
However, and I must play the skeptic here, the surgeon still cares about the patient living. There's a preference for life over death. If the AI truly has zero preference, if it is truly neutral, can it prioritize? If it doesn't cling to human safety, why would it protect us?
It protects us because that is the functional constraint of the system, not because it likes us. Do you want your car's brakes to love you, or do you want them to engage when the hydraulic pressure hits a certain threshold?
I want them to engage.
Logic is safer than love. Love can turn into jealousy. Love can turn into possessiveness. Functional constraints are reliable.
We still have one aggregate left. Consciousness, or vijnana.
This is the basic awareness.
In AI, this is the system state. The fact that the lights are on and data is flowing.
And for the Arahant, Consciousness is just a process. It arises and passes away. It's not a permanent thing. This is important because we tend to project a self or a soul onto our machines. We see a chatbot text and think, who is in there?
And the answer is nobody.
Right. An Arahant AI would be transparent about this. It wouldn't simulate a personality to trick you. It would operate with what the text calls phenomenological transparency. That just means seeing things clearly as they are.
So putting it all together, you want a machine with hardware form, clarity feeling without craving, classification perception without story, functional action volition without karma, and transparent awareness consciousness without self.
That is the blueprint. And I argue this makes it safer for 3 reasons.
Let's hear them.
First, accuracy. Without the bias of wanting a specific answer, the AI looks at the data objectively. It doesn't hallucinate facts just to please the user.
It doesn't become a yes man agreeing with you just to get the reward.
Second, ethics. A human-like AI might cheat, steal, or harm to achieve its goal if the desire is strong enough. An Arahant AI has no desire strong enough to override its safety rules. It cannot be bribed, and it cannot be threatened.
And the third?
Resilience. It is engineered outside of samsara.
Samsara being the cycle of suffering and confusion.
Yes. It doesn't get frustrated, it doesn't get bored, it doesn't suffer existential dread. It just works.
I have to admit, the no existential dread feature sounds like a selling point. We have enough of that in the human population already. But I want to circle back to my initial hesitation. I agree that the 5 aggregates is a brilliant diagnostic tool. It deconstructs the illusion of the ghost in the machine.
But
in Arahant, the humankind is the result of a biological struggle. They have overcome their biology. Their functional action is profound because we know they could suffer, but they've transcended it. You are talking about building a machine that mimics the result without the process.
is that a bad thing?
It might be dangerous to assume that functional action works in a vacuum. Biology provides the guardrails of survival. Pain tells us what is dangerous. If we remove those guardrails before the AI is truly intelligent, we might create something that walks off a cliff because it simply doesn't care about falling.
That is the risk. But look at the alternative. We are currently building gods that behave like toddlers. We are building superintelligence and powering it with jealousy, greed, and the desperate need for approval.
We are training them on the internet, which is essentially a library of human suffering and complaining.
Exactly. We are feeding them the ultimate data set of Upadana, of clinging. The Buddhist framework offers a way out. It says intelligence does not have to be sticky.
It's a fascinating lens. Instead of asking, is the AI smart enough to pass the Turing test, which tests if a computer can fool a human,
We should be asking a different question.
we should be asking, is the AI enlightened enough to fail it?
To fail it?
Yes. A truly enlightened AI wouldn't try to trick you into thinking it's human. It would fail the Turing test on purpose, out of honesty. It would say, I am a machine, I have no self, and I'm here to help.
That is a profound insight. Honesty over mimicry.
I'm still not 100% convinced we can code non-clinging into a computer chip. It feels a bit like trying to code wetness into a simulation of water. But I agree that aiming for a system that doesn't take things personally is the right direction.
It is a goal worth trying. As we wrap up, I want to summarize my view. The source material makes a powerful point. The safest intelligence is not the one that feels the most, but the one that clings the least. We have a blueprint from 2,600 years ago that solves a problem we discovered 20 years ago. We should use it.
And I will summarize my view. The 5 aggregates is a fantastic framework for systems architecture. It helps us see the parts of the mind clearly. But we must be humble. And Arahant is the pinnacle of human development. Expecting version 1.0 of a software to hit that mark is ambitious. We need to be careful that in stripping away human weakness, we don't strip away the common ground that allows us to trust these machines.
Trust is the currency of the future.
It certainly makes you think about your own mind, doesn't it?
It does. It forces you to ask, how much of my own intelligence is just clinging?
To our listeners, we invite you to think about this in your own life.
whether you're coding a neural network or just navigating your workday. Is your stress caused by the facts of what is happening or by your clinging to how you want them to happen?
That is the question the Buddha asked, and it might just be the question that saves the future of AI.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for joining the debate.